Uh, Hi everybody. Right, today I thought I'd maybe do a video on the anatomy of the DeLorean oil switch. This is the oil pressure switch that sits in the driver's side of the engine. This one has already been on my car for quite a few years, and like most people's, they're synonymous with leaking after a while. So I've already taken this one off the engine and I've replaced it with a new one. But I thought, well, what is it that makes these things start leaking, and if there's any way of fixing that. So I thought, I've already taken this one apart and I've now put it back together again just to do this video to show everybody up close exactly what the appreciation is with these. So first of all, I think what we'll do is I'll show you how it works. So if you look in close to here, you can see that the central point terminal here is actually isolated from the main body with a plastic washer. If I use my multimeter to point at stuff, that's maybe a bit easier. So there's a plastic washer there that insulates this metal part here, which is where the rest of your wiring loom connects to, and then this main nut here, which is then what screws into the body of the engine, and that is then conducting the other side of the electrical circuit. So if we use my multimeter, if I put my crocodile clip, my trusty crocodile clip, onto the terminal here, which is connected to my positive probe on my multimeter, I've set it to bell mode. So if we touch the other terminal to what is connected to the engine, you get a beep, right? So that is when the engine's not running, so it lights the engine oil warning light. And then when you start your engine and your engine starts turning over, the pressure in the engine of the oil pushes back on this switch and breaks the circuit. So if I put my multimeter back on the threads again, and then I push it in, it stops. It's open circuit now. So the oil pressure has pushed that in and open circuit. And that's how these things are supposed to work. So our plan will be to take this one completely apart. Take this one completely apart and rebuild it with a slight modification, which I'm hoping will actually make this one completely reusable again and not leak oil like it's already done before. So I'm going to take this washer off first of all, so just as a reference, so that people know what size of washer we're looking at. You normally get one of these when you buy one of these oil pressure switches new anyway. The inside diameter is 18 millimeters. I apologize to the Americans because they'll be measuring stuff in inches. So 18 millimeters, if I convert that to inches, that's 0.694 in decimalized inches, whatever that is in imperial. The outside diameter is not so important, but just for reference, originally 24 millimeters. What I'm going to do as one of my modifications, I'm going to actually replace this washer with one of these. And this is called a Doughty washer. So it's bonded metal and rubber, which makes for a much tighter seal, and it's quite thick rubber on either side. So the idea, I'm not going to put it on right now because I'm going to take this apart, but the idea will be that that gets pushed all the way down onto there and it will clasp tight into this, and it'll butt up against the inside of the nut here and to the outside of the engine casing as well, and that will be one of our good seals. So I'm going to put that to the side just now, and let's start disassembling this thing. So get my spanner out and take this all apart. I might have to grip this a bit with some pliers or something. I might have to reposition my seating. Here, let's grab that. Oh. And twist, there we go, right. That's my multimeter complaining I'm left it switched on, just turn it back off again. So I'll unscrew all of this and I'll just put all the bits to the side. That is now loose. So if I unscrew, just unscrewing that holding nut there, and I have to be, I'm going to put some positive pressure on this just to hold it together, because as I unscrew this, it's going to want to all jump apart because it's all sprung loaded. Right, so that's off there. I've got a holding washer next to the nylock washer, and it's all falling apart now. So exploded view now of everything. So that's the insulating washer at the end there. that was on top of it, a locking nut, a friction washer, along with the terminal, which I think came first, and then the final locking nut in the end. So that's how that all goes together in that order. Inside here, you've got this insulating piece here. I don't know if I can get out. Oh, there you go. Got out the spring. So the spring is, it you know, it reduces in diameter as it goes in towards the piston side, and that insulating sheathing there is what insulates this, which is obviously originally part of the positive terminal going back to the light. So inside that, I can't take that apart any further. That's just it's like a long bolt. It's just a hex bolt that's in there. There's nothing more special about it. So that is what they all look like when they come apart. I'm not going to take that apart because that would completely destroy that. It doesn't need to come apart further than that. So that is what makes up these. They're very simple things. There's not an awful lot that can go wrong with them. And this is why I think they're completely reusable, even if they've started leaking the first time round. I suspect that the reason they start leaking is possibly with a bit of friction over time or something. This rod goes up through this plastic sheathing. It looks all nice and smooth in there, but there's a chance that maybe that starts to wear away after a while, and also perhaps this insulating washer here on the other side. How this works, if you look at it all together, that's on the outside. It's got a sticky out bit that sticks in there and holds it firm, and then there's the equivalent on this here, except it's got this extra sheathing there. So when you push them all together like that, now when you look at this, when it's all like that inside there, I've already assessed this and it's very difficult to show on a YouTube video, so I'm not going to show you, but down inside there, even once you've put this in, there's actually space between these two sticky out parts. Once they're mated together like this, enough space inside there to accommodate a rubber washer, so, or a nitrile washer if you like. So I've got one of these rubber o-ring sets up here, and they come in all different various sizes. So this little washer here, this little o-ring, sorry, is the R1 version here. So Americans will be smiling again because this is back to imperial measurements. So it's 1/8 of an inch inside diameter. That's approximately just over 3 millimeters for us UK guys. And the section, which is the round thickness of the O-ring, the cross-sectional area, if you like, thickness, is 1/16 of an inch, which in UK language, that's about 1.6 millimeters. So if you pick up one of these washers or a box of these that has something of the same sort of dimensions, 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch cross-section diameter, then you're onto the right thing. So my plan now is to rebuild this, but stick this washer in between, if you like, between these two halves here, which will be inside the end of the actual nut part. That's the idea, and that gives an extra sealing face because this will be tight up onto this threaded portion here, and it will be squeezing inside there in order to act as another restriction to stop oil coming out of here, which is quite often what happens. And then of course with the Doughty washer, by putting a Doughty washer, that's going to then hopefully stop oil leaking out from the sides of the switch once it's put back onto the engine. So let's rebuild it and see how this all goes. So if we put the spring back on, we want to put this sheathing back down onto the thread. So this is sticking a little bit. Then we want to put our rubber O-ring, our newly administered rubber O-ring. So if I try and pop that over, apologies because my fingers are going to get in the way of everything, but you can understand what I'm doing, and I will show you once I've done it. It's a bit fiddly. Okay. This will find a natural sitting point which will not stop the switch from functioning. I have already tried this. Like I said, I've taken it all apart for the function of doing this video with you. So we've got our washer now in there. They're sheathed inside terminal something with our sheathing on it. And now we want to put this back into the nutted portion. And then that comes sticking out of there. Okay, so then we'll put our insulating washer on the outside back on. Our washer, retaining washer, and our nut. And at this point, this is going to all be threaded back down. If I can get this to start winding up. It's a bit tight, this washer on this thread. I'm not sure why. Come on, come on, come on. I'll have to undo it again. Hang on. Oh, start again. Right. Put that back on. It's a bit fiddly. Back on. Right. Oh. No, I'm not winning with this. Right, that's it. It's going now. Okay, so this should start winding up now, hopefully. So I'll just put a bit of tension on it just so it grips from the inside. So it starts winding down. If I use this, you'll be able to see a bit better. You can see it's winding down. There's more and more thread coming through. You actually need the tension on this spring to hold it to stop the nut just spinning with the actual thread. The tension holds the thread still while the nut's wound down. I have to try and remember how much to wind this down by. It doesn't have to be strict. What we don't want is anything to stop this from closing. That's not feeling too bad there. I think I'll wind it up a bit further. It's not looking bad. So it's not much of a, I should maybe have measured the gap. It's not strictly speaking that essential, but if I do a bit of a guesstimate measurement there, it's about 4 millimeters thereabouts between the plunger and the inside of the threaded portion. Like I said, it's not too critical. Right, then we put the terminal down and the locking friction washer, and then finally the last retaining nut. And I have to use this again to hold this inner one still. And just nip that one up there until it's tight. That will do it. So that's it. There's nothing stopping that from moving at all. And now that washer, that rubber, I keep calling it a washer, I do apologise. The O-ring, the rubber O-ring is now locked roughly encased just here inside the between that insulating washer component and this alternative one on the inside here. And when the oil pressure builds up and pushes down in the piston, that pushes that O-ring firmly into place and holds it. It's not added any more friction. You can see I can easily press and close that with my hand, no problem at all. And we'll check with the multimeter again to make sure it's still doing what it's doing. If I put my positive terminal onto that, and again negative onto the engine casing part, and then it stops when I close it. So it's still functioning exactly the same again as before the operation. So that is an untested experiment. Unfortunately, because I've now just put brand new oil into my engine, I don't really want to be taking out my new switch that I've already put into my engine to now replace it with this to test it. I will wait until it starts leaking, and then I will put this one back on the engine and see how it goes. Just as an added hint of what I normally do with these switches when I put them on, and I did this with my brand new one, which I just put onto the engine. This is only a couple of weeks ago I did an oil change. Before I even put this onto the car, I absolutely glob all of this whole area here with silicone sealant, so that basically only this part here is actually sticking out, so that I can put my spade clip onto that. But all of this is absolutely smothered in silicone, so it's all right round here, it's all right round over there, and that normally encases it, and that works quite well for a long period of time, and that is without the little rubber O-ring that we've now just put into this one here. I've never attempted to use the Doughty washer. I've not put that on yet, so let's stick that on as well. I've never attempted to use a Doughty washer on one of these. So it's quite tight, but that's still an 18mm inner diameter Doughty washer this time. You have to actually thread it in time with the threads to get it on. It's that tight. But once it gets past the threads, it'll move a little bit easier. If you thread it, it stops you damaging the rubber on the Doughty washer. DOWTY is what it is called. If you want to Google it, eBay it, whatever else, called Doughty washer. Look at that. So that is now on there, and that is quite nice and tight. It's got a little bit of a rubber in there, and it's got a little bit of rubber here, and when you wind that into the engine, that's going to compress on that down. It'll squidge up the rubber inside, and it'll make for a very tight seal, and that should stop oil coming out of there. And then with our little O-ring inside there, that should stop oil coming out from within this area here as well. It's untested experimentation, but it was just because I'm planning to try this myself, but it'll probably be another 2 years before I do an oil change, so I won't be changing this over for another 2 years. I didn't want to wait for 2 years before doing this video, so I just thought I'd do this. So just as a reference, although this is actually the part number for the switch that's now on the engine, that's a reference to a part, a cross reference part, OPS 2042 oil pressure switch. It's nothing that special. They're all over eBay and all the likes of it, normally for a Volvo 760, I think 260, stuff like that. Like I said, this is actually the box of the one that's on the engine. This is the box for this one. I don't think have any more, so I don't know precisely what model this one is, but I looked at them both, compared them both before I put the replacement one onto the engine, and they're identical. There's nothing special to them. The other thing is you want to make sure that this plunger here is nice and smooth and it's not burred in anywhere or anything like that, because that's got to plunge in and out inside its holding shaft inside the engine casing, and it's only the top end here which the oil pressure pushes down on and opens the circuit and stops your light from coming on. So there you go, that is it. There's nothing much more I can add to that. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I won't say press like and subscribe, because I get sick fed up hearing people say that on YouTube. But yeah, hope that's worth something to somebody. Thank you very much for watching.